Today's lesson is about making something called a qualified claim. If you remember from our last lesson, a claim is a statement that can be argued and proven with evidence. Now, so far we've only focused on a basic kind of claim, where you argue for just one side of an issue. So in this example, the claim motorcyclists should be required by law to wear helmets, we would want to be the case for all kinds of situations. But some issues are complicated, so you might want to make a more sophisticated claim that takes into account both sides of an argument. And that's what we call making a qualified claim, which is neither totally for or against an issue, but somewhere in between. Let's look at what I mean. So here we have our motorcyclist example, but I've changed the original claim into a qualified claim. So now, motorcyclists should only be required by law to wear helmets if it's raining. So what this means is that my claim still thinks motorcyclists should wear helmets, but only in certain situations, for example when it's raining. I've added the qualifiers only and if to modify my original claim into a qualified claim. Let's look at another couple of examples. So the issue is, should students be allowed cell phones in class? Now I might be thinking to myself, well, in some situations this might be okay. So I want to write a qualified claim to allow this, such as students should only be allowed cell phones in class to help them with their work. Let's look at another example. If you remember the example of graffiti, should graffiti be allowed? Again, maybe I think, well, sometimes graffiti is okay. So what I would do is write a qualified claim. Graffiti should only be allowed if it does not lead to an increase in crime. Or I could word it slightly differently. Graffiti should not be allowed unless the local community agrees to it. Now in both examples, I'm using a qualified claim to allow for certain situations in which graffiti should or should not be allowed. Now the issue of designer babies is a complicated issue because there are a lot of different types of ways in which babies can be thought of as designed. Now on the screen here is actually a real website for a real company called the Fertility Institutes. They're based in New York, and if you have enough money, you can select the gender and now the eye color of your baby. And Kim and Kanye, for example, are rumored to have gone to the Fertility Institute to choose a boy. So the issue of designer babies is one where people make qualified claims. They think it should be allowed, but only in certain cases. Let's look at the different kinds of ways to make a baby. Okay, so first we have a natural baby where there is no genetic engineering. But some people can't have a natural baby, so they decide to have IVF, in vitro fertilization, where an embryo is made in a petri dish and then put into the mother's uterus for her to eventually give birth to a baby. Now IVF has been around for a while and it's now got quite sophisticated. So there's such a thing called selective IVF, where you can go to somewhere like the Fertility Institute, where Kim and Kanye supposedly went, and your embryo can be screened to make sure it's healthy, and also you could select the gender and the eye color. And then we can go a step further, and that's where we have something called the three-person baby, because this baby actually has three parents. Along with the DNA of the mother and the father, a special type of DNA called mitochondrial DNA is added from another woman to prevent certain diseases. And lastly, the most extreme form of genetic engineering is CRISPR. And that's where the genetic code of the baby is edited out or edited to cut out certain diseases or to add certain desirable traits like intelligence and athleticism. Now, CRISPR is different to all the other types of designer baby because it affects not just that baby, but all future generations of that baby, and it can't be reversed. So where do you draw the line? Should only IVF be allowed for people who can't have children naturally? Or would you go further? Would you allow selective IVF? Would you allow 3-person babies? Would you allow CRISPR? Where do we stop? So for today's assignment, you're going to go to the Padlet link in the assignment, and this time you're going to make a qualified claim about genetic engineering. To do this, you could just change your original claim, or you can make a new one. Now, I know some of you are totally against any form of designer baby, and that's okay. But for this exercise, I just want you to practice making a qualified claim. You don't actually have to believe in it. So this was my original claim on the original Padlet. CRISPR, the main technology involved in gene editing, is irreversible. For this reason, babies should not be genetically modified. And now I've made a qualified claim. And my qualified claim reads, CRISPR, the main technology involved in gene editing, is irreversible. So that bit's still the same. But now I've qualified my claim. For this reason, babies should only be genetically modified to select a healthy embryo, not other desirable traits that will be passed down from one generation to the next. So I want you to make your qualified claim. Remember, the title is your full name, and then you just write your post, turn in the assignment, and then you're all done.